hostile environment. How are you guys able to control things so much down the stretch?
Yeah, we were able to get stops. That's been the trend for us lately, just trying to find ways to get stops. Coming down the stretch, playing really good basketball team, really good players, you got to find a way. And we did so tonight and gave ourselves a chance.
Tonight, though, taking on a very worthy opponent, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the #1 team in the Western Conference. SGA, he rocked them that time and finished at the rim. Here's Tatum. Horford made the last one, that's 2 in a row. Tatum out top around the Cornet screen. Dort with the contest. Tatum. If you watch Peyton Pritchard play once against some of the better players on the Celtics team.
Another huge win for OKC at Boston, and here I am again glazing OKC for the 10,000th time on this damn pod. Gonna lay out the topics for the episode on this one, and it's gonna go as follows. We're gonna talk about some key stats that I did some digging on the Boston Celtics to kind of find one trending stat for them and their losses. Also, just a couple of differences between these two teams. I'm going to lay that into the stat category, I suppose. And I'm also going to just kind of zoom through the standouts from both teams. You can probably guess which ones those are going to be. Then we're going to go through some game clips just to kind of show a lot of the things that I'm talking about, whether it's on the defensive end when I'm giving a shout out to some of those OKC players. And there's also going to be a little bit of an Al Horford appreciation section of this episode. Just a guy that I feel like doesn't get enough credit these days. Last time they played the Celtics full strength, right? Celtics had a full lineup, and OKC won without Chet. So that should be marked in there, right? That should definitely not slip anyone's minds if anyone didn't watch that game or doesn't remember the details of that one. So let's get to the first order of business on this episode. Let's go to the key stats for this matchup. Now, going into this game, I did some digging and I wanted to see, how these teams can kind of counter each other. OKC, they're holding opponents to 33.5% from three. And that's #1 in the league. That's a very powerful stat when you're considering why the Celtics seem to run into a wall when they play this team. Celtics, obviously, #1 in three-pointers attempted. That didn't take a lot of research. 48.2 threes a game. In their wins, they averaged 38.4%. I went through their losses, 19 of them this season. 13 of the 19 losses are when they shoot 35% or less. So when they're shooting about league average, they are more often than not losing that game. Celtics this game, 31.7%. We know about all the threes they were taking, 63 to be exact. And this is where you start to hear the complaints from Celtics fans and just any fan watching these games and thinking, OKC, look at the free throw disparity. Shea at it again, right? But okay, if you want to take away those 11 free throws that he took, which, okay, it's a lot of free throws. Some of them, maybe some rough calls that went his way, of course. That's going to happen sometimes. But when you're taking 63 threes, the Boston Celtics, you're basically selling yourself short in terms of what you could really do, right? Like Jason Tatum, I go through his free throw attempts on the season per game. He's at 6 and change. I think it was like 6.2 before that game. For as athletic and skilled as Tatum is, everyone knows that he can score in a variety of ways. Why is it that getting to the rim is not the main objective for a guy like Tatum? He settles for so many shots, and I've talked about that on this pod. And of course, he's on the perfect team when you want to talk about settling for shots. This team just chucks a bunch of threes, and I talk about it all the time. And OKC is just like, we're going to take the open ones. We're going to drive and kick and drive and kick and drive and kick until we find an advantage. The Celtics are going to drive and kick to a certain extent. On the season, free throw attempts, which everyone seems to complain about OKC and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. OKC gets to the free throw line. They're 27th in free throws per game. So just let that sink in for a little bit. The Celtics, 29th in free throw attempts. Obviously, when you're taking that many threes, you're just not getting to the rim. They're also 29th in drives this season. OKC, on the other hand, is second in drives. So yeah, if you drive, you're either going to get to the line or you're going to get good looks because you're going to beat your guy off the dribble, which a lot of the Celtics players can do. Pretty much 1 through 5, they can do that unless Hartenstein's in that lineup. And you're either going to draw a help defender and you're going to be able to kick it out, or no one's going to help and you're going to get to the free throw line, or you're going to finish at the rim. You know, worst case scenario, you miss, it is what it is. But OKC just with the tried and true strategy, right? Just swing, attack a closeout, get a touch in the paint. If help shows, you kick it out again. And you rinse and repeat until you get an advantage. You have a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit. I wanted to just lay out those interesting stats between these two teams. Unacceptable, 29th in drives, with the level of athleticism and skill that you have just at those two wing slots, right? The 2-guard/3 guard with the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown combination, right? I just don't understand how these guys don't get to the rim more. Let's get to the standouts on this one. And for OKC, you got Chet Holmgren, who obviously no Jalen Williams in this one, so OKC needed every bit of this Chet Holmgren game. 23 points, 15 rebounds, 50% from 3, had some big offensive rebounds, some putbacks that you'll see in these clips. Just a great overall display of his versatility, right? Like just what he can do for you. And I'm only talking about offense. Like we know the rim protection, the shot contesting, the mobility, the switchability. Just a great game by this guy. And just every bit of a reason why this guy was the runner-up rookie of the year. I think it was behind Wemby, right? Like in any other scenario, he wins rookie of the year, in my opinion. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with the 34 points, 7 assists, 11 of 20 from the field, 10 of 11 from the free throw line, if I'm not mistaken. I didn't write that one down. Another incredible night from this guy. You see him signing autographs to the Celtics fans, which I think is a rare sight. I don't think a lot of opposing best players on the other team are out there signing autographs to the Celtics fans. I could be wrong, but I just think that Shai is in a very rare space at this moment in time. Cason Wallace, my last shout out to OKC because I want to keep it to like 3 players. If not, I'll just keep going forever. Cason Wallace with the 14 points, the 2 steals. One of them was, some inbound laziness that he caught. But the block on Jaylen Brown, just the overall defensive job that he did in this game, which is obviously one of the better things that he does. He's obviously a capable shot maker. He can get to the rim. He makes really good plays. May not end in assists, but he does make the right reads. He's very aggressive. He's just nonstop. He's always on go mode, and he wants all the smoke. And him guarding Jaylen Brown, which I'm going to be showing on these clips, the effort level is, what more can you ask? You have Lou Dort, who you can just ask to take up whatever assignment. And the problem with guarding the Celtics is your best defender has to choose whether he's going to guard Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. And, OKC has about 4 guys that they can choose from. You could maybe even say 5. Let me go through them as we speak. So, Kenrich Williams, a sleeper role player that just plays extremely hard. They call him Kenny Hustle. You got, obviously, Jalen Williams, who wasn't in this game. They can put him on a player. They can put him on Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. You have Lou Dort, obvious. You also have Alex Caruso, who, like I mentioned earlier, did not play in this game. Point of attack defender, right? That can definitely get the job done or make things very difficult. You can put Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on a guy. He's a really good point of attack defender. He's going to poke the ball away. He's going to get some deflections. He's going to show some effort. He's strong. He has a great wingspan. Another guy, right? And then if you really want to go crazy with it, you can put Chet on one of those guys. Just switch Chet onto them if there's some kind of screen action, and Chet's going to hold some solid ground and get to a place where he can contest. They just have... I didn't even mention Aaron Wiggins, who, by the way, was an absolute 0 offensively, and that's what makes this team so scary. Aaron Wiggins will probably never go 0 for 9 again, right? And look, he may go like 1 for 2. 1 for 5, right? But him going without a bucket is incredibly hard to imagine. So just crazy game, right? Now let's get to the Celtics standouts. Jason Tatum with the 33 points. Absolute machine in the first half. Third quarter was really good. Disappeared a little bit in the fourth. 52.2% from the field. Just looking like the guy that the Celtics fans are always complaining, why is he not in the MVP conversation, right? He was cooking with the 33, 8, and 8, right? Just his ability to turn into a playmaker if he absolutely has to is also one of the things that I think people sleep on. Al Horford, who I'm going to give a little section of this pod for, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, 50% from 3. What more could you ask from this guy? Picking up defensively, I'm going to get into him later on in this pod. Big shout out to Al Horford from this game. And then Derek White, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists, the 2 steals, the 3 blocks, 50% from 3. Just stud of a player. And obviously the no-show offensively, Jaylen Brown, right? Like just not having a good night. And it happens, right? It happens. That's what makes this team so great. You got so many other guys that can just pick up the slack. That's where the benefit of having Jaylen Brown is for the Celtics. Like he's a guy that like if Tatum doesn't have it, Jaylen Brown starts cooking. If Jaylen Brown isn't cooking, Jason Tatum starts cooking. And if none of those guys are cooking and Kristaps is in this game, Kristaps will cook, right? And that's where this whole thing becomes very interesting if you're looking at it from the Celtics perspective, because I want to see these two teams go at it, obviously when everyone's healthy. One of the glaring strategies from OKC in this game was we're going to put our help defender / roamer, right, guy that's going to cheat away and help us on drives. We're going to put him on Al Horford, and if there's any drive, if there's any attempt from the Celtics to get down to the rim, we're going to send help from the guy guarding Al Horford. And shout out to Al Horford, 6 for 12 on threes. Not the result that OKC wanted from Horford shooting-wise, but it did help them plug the gaps when there were drives. They're just going to say, hey, man, Al Horford, you take all these threes, we're going to close out late, right? We're in transition. We're finding everyone else. We're putting a body on everyone else, and we'll find you later. And shout out to Al Horford. This guy just came through big time. And yes, they lost. I got my dog's hairs here. But yes, they lost. But just what he is able to do for these Celtics at this stage of his career is incredible stuff. Like, Al Horford has had an incredible career. And all we talk about is, rightfully so, LeBron, KD, these guys age 40, age 36, Chris Paul age 40, Steph Curry age 37. Obviously, these guys are legends. Of course, they're going to get the bulk of the conversations. Who's going to mention Al Horford in those talks? But in terms of a long career of success and just sustainability, evolution, like the evolution of a player, Al Horford should be studied if we're really keeping it 100 on this pod. Like, this guy comes into the league, and yeah, he had a shooting touch, but he was like posting up as an undersized center, and he would stretch out, right, like 15 feet, and here he is now just chucking a bunch of threes, right? Like, and not just chucking them, but Al Horford really stuck out. And where Al Horford also stands out is his ability to play defense and hold his ground. And if you want to see like the most recent example of Al Horford playing defense, just watch him on Luka, right? And people are going to be like, oh, well, that's Luka who's not in shape right now. Watch him against Luka in the regular season last year. Watch him against Luka in the playoffs, right? Whenever those rare situations where Horford is switched on to Luka, he holds his ground. He rarely jumps, right? He stays on his feet for the most part. He stays vertical. His hands are active. He's very smart. He's not going to foul, right? And you may get by him, but he's going to catch up using some angles, and he may get a contest and make you just miss, right? Because you know he's around somewhere. Just a guy with excellent footwork, and the fact that he's been able to sustain such a long career is incredibly impressive, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Al Horford. This was an incredible game, and it was just another example of why OKC is the special team that it is, and it's why I think this team is going to get to the finals. Will they win it all? I don't know. If they face the Celtics, my concern is experience, but experience is always the knock on these teams until they get it done. I'm rooting for the Thunder, if you didn't already know that, and I hope we see this finals matchup.